Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. South African banks are being engaged for the raising of $113 million to fund Liberia's first commercial gold mine. Mining Weekly editor Martin Creamer tells us more. Welcome, Martin.
Thanks, Shannon.
Now, why are banks showing such interest in what some consider still a risky investment area?
Yeah, well, I think firstly they're looking at the people involved. And, we know Dave Redding. I mean, in the 90s you could just go down the road from this office and you'd find him beavering away in Selby, because he was then looking at Mali, and brother, what a success in Mali. I mean, and you see also Adrian Reynolds as a non-executive director. So I'm sure the banks will look at these two experienced guys and say, wow. I mean, when Dave and Mark Bristow went into Mali and they turned Marilla to account, it was one of the big success stories. In fact, it became known as Marilla, the Golden Gorilla, and it actually was a company maker for Randgold Resources, which is doing exceptionally well on the London Stock Exchange. And it was all about discovery and development. These people don't acquire things; they all got a geological background, and they think, gee whiz, we're not going to overpay for assets. So they go out there and they work the drilling to make sure that they know there's gold in that ground, and they get it at a much lower cost. So it's the same now with Aureus, which is Aureus Mining. It's being led by Dave Redding, whom we know. He sees this as a starter kit for himself in Liberia. And they're saying, well, it's not that much money to raise this debt. We've already gone to the London AIM and the TSX, and we've raised ourselves $40 million Canadian. That is paid for all the exploration work and the drilling, but now we need to build a mine, and we think the payback there is going to be particularly quick, because the grade at New Liberty, and of course everything's about liberty when it comes to Liberia, because of the history of the place, where they freed slaves. The United States were given a new lease of life to come out there, and of course it's taken very long for them to get something out of it. But with the new leadership there of Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, Africa's first female president, she's into a second democratic term, and she's quite keen that this New Liberty asset, the first commercial gold mine, be turned to positive account quickly, because people associate gold with the Gold Coast and this whole part of the area, so it's a bit of an emotion around it. And Dave Redding, I think, is the man at Aureus to do this, because of his experience in that part of the world and his geological experience. Because we remember he goes back with Anglo-American here, and he's been a previous CEO of another company that's done quite well. So now he's coming to the South African banks. Of course, these guys know the South African banks, and the South African banks know them. So there could be a meeting of the minds. It would be much better, of course, if these companies listed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. We're finding that they're bypassing the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, which is to the detriment of Africa and the people of Africa. They'll go to the London AIM, they will go to the TSX, because they know it's a better proposition for them. Whereas I think more and more the Johannesburg Stock Exchange should be the place where they raise this capital, so that the people of Africa can participate in the fruits that come out of this. Obviously, they've also got to take the risks. And we look at Central Africa now, and you think, well, Chile is the big copper country. But when you look at the depths of some of those Chile mines, when you look at the grades, you realize that Central Africa has got a wonderful treasure of copper there, high grade, not deep. It would be great if Johannesburg could finance the exploitation of that and turn Africa into the new copper leader.
Now, what do you think some of the main opportunities are in Liberia?
Well, Liberia's still fairly underexplored. So, if you get people like, Dave Redding and his team going in, they're going to make sure that near mine exploration is done. These geologists are actually the people to have in Africa. You could see that with Dr. Mark Bristow. I mean, not that long ago, he used to be teaching geology to students in KwaZulu-Natal University, and then he put it to practical effect in Africa. And I once went to his mine in Mali, and the people were ululating. They were ululating about him. And I said to him, but why are you giving him such encouragement here? And they said, well, look, before he arrived on the scene, we would have been lucky if we were earning $500 a year. Now we're earning way over $500 a month. And it's only because of what he's done here. And one thing about the South Africans that go into Africa, they don't recolonize. They make sure that the government gets the taxes. They make sure that the local people are employed and trained up. They've got that feel. And, we see it with Dr. Mark Bristow. He loves to see all boats being floated. And that's why he doesn't like other companies coming in and mining the market, but not actually making sure that governments of Africa get their fair share, because he says you're going to ruin it for all of us. And he gives that speech quite often. And make sure everybody benefits and benefits well. So I think that this will be a starting point if it is successful there, if they can get the capital and get moving, and we will see more, because there are a lot of other opportunities there besides gold.
And I suppose there's also an advantage that it's so close to Monrovia.
Exactly. I mean, this mine, Dave Redding tells me on the phone from London, you can you can travel to it. It's 100 kilometers north of Monrovia. You can travel to it by tarred road. We don't think of that in Africa. Yes. So I said to him, yeah, what about the electricity? So he said, well, it's not on the grid at this point in time. But what there is a possibility of is low-cost run-of-river hydropower. And that's what he's hoping to get, so that you don't have to pay so much for the diesel.
Now, what other exciting opportunities are happening in Liberia? What other opportunities can you look forward to there?
Yeah, he's saying it's a busy place. And, we know that something like $16 billion in foreign direct investment is now being ploughed into Liberia, and a lot of it, around resources. And we see big resources hitters. BHP Billiton's there trying to get the iron ore resource turned to account. We see ArcelorMittal turning the iron ore to account. We see the big gold company from America, Newmont, looking for a license there. We see Adamas and Endeavour already doing something in the gold field. But of course, and there's a Malaysian company there working on palm oil. So there's quite a lot of foreign direct investment going. It should be very good. But we note that these smaller companies, like Aureus Mining, headed by Dave Redding, they're quicker off the mark. And so they're probably likely to get gold out of the ground faster. And so there's a mixture of big companies and smaller companies, and that's always good, because some of these explorers can do things quite nimbly. But of course, I hear from Aureus that they don't want to just be an explorer. They also want to discover and develop. So it's the same pattern that we saw with Dr. Mark Bristow in West Africa, where his Randgold Resources has got a renowned strategy, discovery and development. And it does the best for the shareholders, no doubt about that.
Well, we look forward to seeing that one. Thank you very much, Martin.
It's a great pleasure, Shannon.
That's the show for today. Join us again next time for more news and insight into what's happening in the mining world.